Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Fratello Talks. I'm your host, Nacho. This week, I'm joined by my colleagues,
RJ
and
Morgan.
And we're going to be talking about buying, selling, trading watches and how to avoid regrets, right? It's all about having no regrets.
No regrets, man.
No regrets.
I think RJ will be the one with the most experience in that scenario.
And with a lot of regrets.
Yes.
Or not.
You love regrets?
Well, before we get into our regrets or potential lack of regrets, let's first see what we have on our wrist. Morgan, what's on your wrist today?
My Seamaster 300M, the 2531.80, if I'm correct.
Yes.
And you got some regrets with that one, I think, RJ?
Yes, first I thought I would have no regrets. But
I
bought my first one in 2000. And then I sold it a few years later. And then I bought one back, sold it, bought one back, sold it. And then in 2017, I think, I bought one back. And that one I kept because I think if I keep buying it back, it's better to keep it.
Yeah. But it's
that sort of means it's all good. No, but that sort of means that it was meant to stay. Perfect. So what about on your wrist, RJ?
I'm wearing a watch from my year of birth. It's 1991 Rolex day date.
This is my year of birth, actually.
It's
You're
18.
also 31.
Yes.
Ah, man.
It's 18238, yellow gold, of course, and with the president bracelet and the gold or champagne dial.
Very nice.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Very
Very
classic.
This one.
Yeah,
that's my favorite
of the day date.
Can go no wrong, right? Tony Soprano
Amazing.
endorsed Rolex. That's the way.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
that's the one I prefer, I think.
Perfect. Yeah, and I'm wearing a Seiko 7002 from also a birth year, actually. Well, this one's from well, maybe not also a birth year, but actually a birth year from 1993. And it's the sort of famous ghost bezel. It's a bit of a weird one. It's nothing special. I bought it for $100 on a German watch forum. Urforum. Shout out to the Germans. Yeah. I really dig it. It's got a cool look to it. It's I think it was probably the first story I wrote for Fratello was actually about this watch.
Okay.
I'll link it in the article.
Yeah, I remember this one on your Instagram for ages.
Yeah, I haven't worn it for a while, and I thought, hey, we're going to be visiting Seiko later today, so why not put on a little Seiko for the day. Perfect. So let's jump into the topic. We've already looked at one of your regrets that you had, RJ, or one of your watches that you sold but kept kind of coming back to. What are other experiences similarly to that come to mind? Do you regret having sold any of your watches in hindsight, or do you not tend to regret these kinds of decisions?
It's also part of the watch collecting journey. So I've been collecting watches since 98, 99. Mm-hmm. And since I was 8 years old. No. And it might sound, sometimes people get the label being a flipper. And I think when I started collecting watches, I think that's what you do. And it's not necessarily flipping, because that has a negative connotation to it, I feel, to make money. But for me, it was also, you were collecting watches and you try to move up a little bit. You
want to see what you like and what you don't.
Yeah, that, but also try to work your way to more expensive watches. And I bought a lot of like smaller watches, like vintage IWCs, Omegas, and whatnot, Rolexes. And at some point you come and say, okay, now I am ready for the next step, and I have to sell some watches to create some funds for more expensive watch. And that way I work my way a little bit up, if you want to. Audemars Piguet. I had a few of those. Breitlinks. I had several different brands, basically. But do I have regrets? Some, because some of the watches they got sold because I wanted to trade up. Then in hindsight, I think, that was actually quite a nice watch. And some watches I don't miss at all. Very different. And sometimes I have the feeling that I have regrets about a watch. And I think the good example is, a good example is the Rolex Yachtmaster that I had in the mid 2000s, and then I traded that one for unbelievable these days for a Royal Oak 15300. It's a 39 millimeter Royal Oak. Wow.
But like, there's also
those
the
were
thing,
5K at the time.
There's also the thing, like you talk about the AP in the Royal Oak.
But just to finish the story, I will get to that. But to finish the story with the Yachtmaster, so I sold it, and then I thought I miss it. And I saw one of our dear readers and followers, Wesley. he was wearing the Yachtmaster at some point when we met, and I thought, oh man, that's such a nice watch.
Yeah.
And then I bought one back, and then I found myself not wearing it again. So
Right.
then I realized, oh yeah, there was a reason that I
Yeah.
traded it or that I sold it. So then I sold that one again as well. So sometimes you make the mistake. There's like a false sentiment, perhaps, that you think you missed something and then you want to buy it back. With the Royal Oaks, it was a little bit different. So I had 3 in total and 2 at the same time at some point. So I had a Royal Oak 15300 that I traded up for a Jumbo 15202. And then on top, I added the Royal Oak Chronograph 26300, also 39 millimeters. Because I missed my first Royal Oak that had a silvery white dial.
Yeah, okay.
And the Jumbo I had this charcoal bluish grayish
Right,
dial.
right.
Then I thought, I missed a light dial. So I bought the Royal Oak Chronograph also with this Panda dial, silvery white with dark subdials.
Yeah.
And I sold those as well because I realized that I had more fun in collecting Speedmasters. So I traded them and sold them for and to afford a bunch of Speedmasters. Do I miss those sometimes? Because the Royal Oak still is one of my favorite watches.
That's nice.
There was also a different reason behind it to sell them. I was not a fan of the previous CEO, and I think that made it that put a negative mark on the brand for me. Yeah. There was a person that I could not relate to, or I didn't just
Sort of spoiled the fun a little.
Spoiled the fun a little bit, and I guess that doesn't. If you're like a regular consumer. You don't mind, you don't care, you're not in touch with the brand as such. I mean, perhaps the CEO of BMW is a dick, but but I don't know. I'm just a consumer of the brand.
Yeah, you're not
drive
deep,
that car.
deep
I'm not,
in the space, deep in the.
I'm not in the car industry, so I don't know.
Yeah, you don't know the behind.
But with some brands, then it's the case that you're not really warming up to them, and then it also puts a bit of a negative thing on the brand as such. So I don't regret that as such, but in the end, the Royal Oak is a very nice watch, and but I also feel at some point they got so expensive it would make me uncomfortable to wear.
Yeah, I was going to
a steel watch that is valued for like 80K.
That was my question. Regrets about selling it like I don't know 10 years ago maybe, or I don't know exactly, but those watches that you sold today, if you have sold them, you would have made like probably a lot more money. So do you have regrets in that sense? Like, if I knew,
Because I feel what I did was I traded the chronograph for a bunch of Speedmasters that I think combined are worth more than the Royal Oak Chrono.
Yeah.
And the AP Royal Oak Jumbo, I think I sold for 35K or something. And I bought it at 7K.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So
you
already
did
it's fine.
And you don't know what it's going to be.
No.
Tomorrow,
So
the
2
price
years
is,
later,
so-
the watch was suddenly like 80K or something.
then
It is what it is.
Yeah, you don't know. You can
You
never
don't know, and now I think they have gone down again. So, and for me, that's also not. Yeah, that's money wise. That is, it's a pity. But
You
I don't know
already did,
if I would really love that Royal Oak. And I bought it for 7K, and it's worth today, I don't know, 60K or 40K. I don't know.
Yeah,
I still think I would not have sold it
that's the thing.
because I like the watch.
If you really like it, regardless of how high the price goes, at some point, if the money speaks more to you than the watch itself, then at that point you can't like the watch that much. Because if you bought it for 7K, and you know that you might regret selling it at some point just to get the money, then you're not going to be able to buy it back potentially.
that's
at
the
some
thing.
point
Exactly.
the prices
Because
also stop making
I think
sense.
I bought the Speedmaster Snoopy 2015 with the wide dial for, I don't know, 5.5K. And now today it's worth, what, 30, 40K?
Yeah, it's
But I don't have the itch to sell it because of that, because...
But you also like that watch. This
I
is
like
this
that
is
watch,
one
yeah.
that this is
I
one
like
that
the watch,
you
I like the brand.
that you quite
so
wear actually.
It's fine.
And you've also raised the point sometimes of saying that you bought that watch for the price that makes sense for that watch.
Yeah.
And if you were to buy it for the current price, you say often like this doesn't feel like a 60K watch, right? Like a Royal Oak Jumbo doesn't feel like a 60K watch.
No.
One of those older ones, right?
Yeah, but sometimes it is also just being old that you bought those watches that Jumbo for 7.5K euros, and today it's worth a multitude of that.
Yeah.
You also have to put things in perspective, because when I started with watches and buying watches, a sports Rolex like a Submariner or whatsoever, they were like 3-4K.
Yeah.
And today they're over 10.
For the same watch.
No,
basically.
that's what I want
but
to say.
the-
The
on the
current one
secondary
is a different
market.
watch, but the former one,
current
like the
free
GMT
market.
Master 2, I think I paid 3.5K in 2004 or 5. And today, if you want to have that exact same watch, a 16710,
Yeah.
I don't know, with box and papers, you pay like 13, 14, 15,000
Yeah.
in good condition.
Yeah.
And for me, it's not worth it. That watch is not worth that money, because when I bought it at 3.5K, I already thought, it's a lot of money for this watch. And you have to see it in perspective. So perhaps today there will be 6, 7K, but not double that.
Yeah.
So for me, there needs to be some kind of rationale in the whole thing. But also there, I sold that watch. That's one of the watches I regret selling.
The
Which one?
GMT
The
Master.
GMT Master 2.
I was going to ask about it because I know that you've mentioned it also
I was so
before.
in love with that watch. So I had when I was a student, I had a
It's
big
really jingly,
computer
this one.
screen, and as a background on my Windows 95 or whatever, I had this wallpaper of the like.
So you were 4 years old back then, right?
Yeah, exactly. I had this advertisement of the GMT and the picture. I thought, yeah, that's my watch, and I want that watch. And then at some point, I bought one. I bought a 1675 vintage one. And then in the end, I bought the GMT Master 2 later on. And but yes, yet I sold it, and I wore that watch a lot. And that's one of the few that I kind of regret. And I can't remember why I sold that watch. I think it was to fund the purchase of another AP. It might have been the chronograph.
Right.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. I can't remember exactly. But that's one of the watches I regret, because if I look at it now, see it on other people's wrists, oh yeah, that's nice.
It's like the
And I wore
Seamaster
that watch
actually.
a lot. Yeah.
It's like the Seamaster.
Yeah.
You told me already. I sold it, and then I saw it on people's wrists, and I was like, it looks good. And then you bought it back.
Yeah. So with the 300M that you have there, it's especially when I was on a holiday, on holidays, I saw that watch so often on the wrist, especially I don't know,
And it
people
looks
from
good.
the UK.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see it
of course.
so much, and I thought, yeah, it looks good. It's a nice watch, and then in the end, I bought it back.
There's a real effect there, which so I have 2 points to make. That there's a real effect of seeing the watch on somebody else's wrist that sometimes will just really get you. Like you'll see it on somebody else's wrist and you'll think, damn, that looks really good. It's such a different thing to seeing it on your own wrist.
And that's for me the major thing about having a regret about a certain watch, that you see it at someone or on a website, you think, oh yeah, that was a really nice watch. And not so much about the financial aspect, because it's worth now 5 times as much as it was back then. Oh, I could have made so much money. No, I think the problem is, the financial problem is buying it back now. I did it with a Sea Dweller. My first Sea Dweller, I bought it in 2002 or 2003, and I think I paid, I don't know, 2,000 euros or something. Can't recall exactly.
Right.
And then I sold it or traded it for, I think, a Speedmaster. And then,
Oh, really?
I bought one back a few years ago, and yeah, the prices on those are still a bit of kind of sane, like around 9,000 euros, but
And
still
less than a sub, which is
also that. But it's still so much more than the 2K I paid for it back in 2002
definitely.
or 2003. But you have to get over that hurdle. You need to be comfortable by, okay, I made a mistake. I want that watch back. Now I have to
pay
to
more.
get the wallet out.
But so that was my second point, is the fact that if you basically are into watches long enough, you will end up making decisions. If you're sort of like if you're taking risks in your collecting, you will end up having potential regrets. But
you need to be mindful about it. So when I sold the AP Royal Jumbo, and at that time for like 35K, that was the value, then I was completely aware that if I sell this watch now,
You can't buy it back
I will not buy it back, because I think it's too much money
for what it is.
for what it is.
Right,
And then
right.
it became even more expensive. Yeah, then I'm out.
Yeah.
Fair
But I have a similar experience.
Yeah, I was going to
with
ask
the-
you, Morgan. What about your experiences
Any
with
regrets?
do you have any regrets?
So, well, I have a regret, but I don't know if it's a regret yet or not. And I have also no regret. I mean, my first luxury watch, like proper watch, was a Tudor Black Bay 41, the burgundy one. That we talked about that in last episode, or the one before. I can't remember. And this one, I don't regret having selling it. It was less. I bought it. I was happy with it. I wanted something different. I just sold it, and I'm good. And even now, if I want to buy it back, well, I can have it for pretty
that's
much
true.
the same money,
Yeah,
or even less. But the watch I regret selling was the 16570, the White Dial Explorer
Rolex
2.
Explorer 2. Yeah.
This is a watch that I bought for around 6.5, 7K box and paper back then, which was on the like higher prices, but I wanted the box and papers. I bought it at a vintage dealer in the boutique, and it was my first Rolex. It's a little bit intimidating, if I may say, because also this is the watch that can be fake, it can be not correct and everything. So you have to do a lot of researches, especially for Rolexes, like bracelet. Is the bracelet okay? Is the dial okay? Is the movement? I mean, you know that. And I sold it because I wanted to buy an Explorer 1, a current one. So I sold it for a little bit more that I pay for. It was around... Yeah, exactly. No, but I sold it for, I don't know, around 8, I think. Around 8K. Okay, so it was okay. I mean, I didn't make...
a little tidy profit.
Yeah, but that was not my goal anyway. But now, every time I see it, especially now that Thomas has the black version, I'm like, man, that looks
But that watch
good.
came down a little bit as well, right? You can buy
so
one
I
for
could buy it back for
8.5K.
pretty much the same price as I bought it in the first place.
But it's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, but the
Especially
thing
when,
is,
back in the day, it was like you said, these sports Rolexes, and especially the 16570 was about 2.5, 3, 3.5, something like that.
Yeah,
but the thing
a
is,
friend of mine bought one in 2005 or 2006 for 3.2.
Yeah, and that was an okay price. But the thing is, I don't know if it's a regret or no, because I sold it in the first place. So if I buy it back, will I enjoy it, or will I be like, I might also sell it again, because in the end...
You sold it for a reason, right? You traded it for a reason.
Apparently
because
I wanted the other one.
Was more attractive to you than Explorer
And you've
2.
had the regular Explorer now for longer than you ever had the 16570. So in a way, that's then
could be false nostalgia.
Yeah, or just
that's what you were saying, but that I don't know until I'll buy it back. If I buy it back, maybe I'll know. And maybe I will be like, that's nice, and I missed it, because I feel like I miss it a lot.
You need to borrow it.
It could just be that sort of FOMO effect of seeing it on other people. Seeing
Also
other
maybe,
people
but that I don't know. But you had those.
I had it with the Yachtmaster. I had the same thing, and then I ended up selling it again. I thought, there was a reason.
But
that I
not with
sold
the Seamaster.
Or with the Sea Dweller.
Because I tried to buy it from you, and you said this time I'm keeping it.
Now I keep it. And the Sea Dweller. Yeah, so but I wear the Sea Dweller.
Right.
Well, not today, but it's for me.
You do.
I like that. For me, that's the tool watch Rolex.
Yeah,
that's really nice.
From that specific era.
It's their best, one of the best dive watches.
I feel so too, and I think it's still fair price. Also compared to the competition out there, because you can compare today's value to the value it was 20 years ago. Yeah. Because we're talking about those kind of lengths, unfortunately. But you also have to compare it to the competition today. So what's out there for 8K? That is more interesting than for your Polar Explorer or Sea Dweller.
This is tricky to be honest.
That's tricky because 8K doesn't buy you that much that is like directly comparable.
No, that's true. Even if it's an older watch, mine was from 2007 from Japan, so I can tell it was like pristine, as every watches from Japan are. Yeah. And I think, for that price today, I'm like, okay, that one I like, but it's not a flyer. That one I like, but it's too thick. That one, I think there's always something off.
That's where Tudor comes into play, because their prices are still quite okay, between 4 and 5K, I guess, more or less, for sports models.
Exactly, yeah.
So, and I also do believe, but this might result in some hate comments, is that the quality of today's Tudor is better than the quality of the Rolexes with 5 digits from the 90s and
or
early
similar
2000s.
or better,
Similar or better.
Yeah.
Even now you have
then
Meta
it's a brand
certified.
perception, because you bought a Rolex in the past and now you buy a Tudor, which for today's standards is positioned below Rolex. So that's a perception thing.
It's true. One thing, so before I touch into some of my own experience, one thing that's kind of surprised me about the way that you guys have spoken about your own experiences is that you guys haven't really talked about like more of a sentimental aspect to it, right? Because for me, I can't say that I have a lot of regrets of selling or trading away watches, because I've not really done it a lot. I think in my time as somebody who's had watches, I traded my Panerai, which was a PAM 55 in titanium, and for another titanium dive watch, which is the Tudor Pelagos FXD. And so far, there's not a lot of regret there. There's a bit of like, I kind of miss the Panerai. It was a nice watch to have, but to be honest, I wouldn't call it at all a regret. And then the only other watch that I've sold was an old Alpina just a vintage Alpina that I bought very, very cheap with a glossy black dial. We'll throw a picture up. That was a really nice watch, and I wouldn't call it regret. I just kind of think, yeah, it would be nice to still have a watch like that. Like that's just it's a cool piece. But to be honest, for me, I really don't tend to sell any watches, and it's mostly because I feel like I get quite attached in that sort of way. Like
you
I tell
have to
myself,
buy more, and then you.
Maybe.
No, but I get what you mean, but I also think that for
sentimental
instance,
value in some way.
For instance, my Rolex, I bought it for my 30 years birthday.
Yeah.
So there's a sentimental value. So I won't sell it.
Your
But the
Explorer
Speedmaster
one.
was my Explorer one, and the Speedmaster was the watch I bought because I always dreamt about getting one. So this one also I won't.
But
I
you
won't
sold
sell.
your first. You sold your first luxury watch, or your Tudor.
Because it was just a watch.
But
that
for
I
me,
bought like that.
it's like I even have my first Omega, which is broken, and the crown comes out, and it's like I bought it for $60, and I could flip it probably. Again, dirty word, but I could sell that watch for close to €1,000 if I get it serviced. But it's still, I'm like,
but it's also
that was my first Omega.
Yeah.
So
but it can also
it's
be
a small
false.
barrier.
It can also be false sentiment because
Sure.
I am also not a big watch, not at all even.
Right.
Only at the start when I started collecting, hoarding it was, and then you also have less sentimental value, less of a connection to the watches because you're just hoarding.
Yeah.
So what I always took care of is I don't sell watches that have sentimental value to me, like watch that I received from, I don't know, my mom or my dad or my wife,
of course.
or inherited a watch. So those watches are off limit. I don't sell them. Those have sentimental value to me.
Yeah, so you can't sell them.
But man, I bought so many watches for birthdays. There's no tomorrow. So
Right.
I have no real sentimental value about that because when I turned 30 or 35, 36, or when I turned 38 and a half, I bought a watch.
Yeah.
So there's no sentimental value. That's like you're making up excuses to buy a watch.
That's true. I
went to the toilet. I bought a watch.
Yeah.
No,
at some point, the line does get a bit blurry. I have
It's
to
just
say,
excuses. So you need to make a distinction. And I do believe that if a watch really has sentimental value to you, and I think if you have less watches, chances are more likely that they have more sentimental value to you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
If you have 50 watches,
It's not possible.
5 might have sentimental value.
Yeah,
to
I
you,
agree
but
with
not
you.
all
Yeah.
50.
I agree with you on that.
That's true, and you can also build or avoid building sentimental value because, like for example, at some points, if you have big things coming up in life, like let's say a wedding or birth of a kid or something like that, you can be like, okay, for that day, I'm going to wear my this watch, and then it kind of gives you more sort of fuel in the tank to not selling it.
So don't wear a watch if you have a kid. If you get a kid.
But then again, you sold you wore your AP at your wedding, and then you sold that one. But
and I don't regret it. And I look sometimes I look at the pictures of our wedding. Yeah. And
It's
then I
also
see
nice to have
myself
the
wearing the
memories.
Royal. I thought, that was a nice watch.
Yeah.
But I don't care. But I was very conscious about wearing a certain watch when my daughter was born and the first pictures.
Right.
I keep that watch. I bought that watch in the year that she was born. So I think that's nice to give to her at some point.
Yeah.
And then it is some kind of sentimental value you created.
Yeah, because
But the
otherwise you're just fixed, and
Exactly.
and you almost can't move. I have to say, a lot of the watches that I sort of quote unquote have sentimental value for, there's some that are nice watches, but a lot of them are just things that I think, well, it's not worth the hassle of selling it. So that's also to do with my early days of collecting, where back then it was already a little too late to have like such value for money as what you had when you got started. So, a lot of them they were just satisfying curiosity. We talked about it in a previous podcast, but in that sense, it's just, they take up space, but it's fine. You put them in a box and you throw them in the back of the closet, and they're just there. They're not taking up your time or money or anything. And in some way it is nice to go back and be able to revisit, like, oh, this was my first mechanical watch. This was my first Omega that I bought when I was a student. I mean, could potentially sell them, but it's also like, well, there's not that much value to get something big out of it. In
the end, it's also just materialistic stuff. So I think it's more about the memory that you have than about a thing that you have.
And the memory you're going to have either way, right? I mean, it's just an object associated to a memory, but if you have pictures or if you can even just think about it, then you have that memory there. And the watches.
Because I think you can end up with a lot of objects in your house or office and keep them for those the sentimental reasons. But I think just objects. It's about the memory or thoughts you have with
but it's interesting how these sort of like very subjective aspects of psychology and somebody's individual preference in that sense really also come into play for something like watches, right? I mean, it's interesting that if you might have a tendency towards hoarding or towards keeping a lot of objects, that you might be less good at letting things go, right?
Exactly.
I definitely see that in myself.
That's funny what you say, because in my life I've moved quite a bit.
Right.
And every time you get rid of stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're like, I might keep that because it reminds me of this and this. And then you move one time. And then you move another time.
Yeah.
And you didn't even unbox the thing.
If you don't
and so you're like,
unbox-
well, man, I will just get rid of it because I don't need it. It just takes space and dust and whatever.
And by the third time you've moved, you don't remember what you got rid of the first time.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So it's also-
Exactly. Yeah.
If you haven't looked at stuff for like 2 years, man, get rid of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's useless. No, but that's true.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
takes dust.
That's true.
I stand firmly on the other side of the line there, and I know that I shouldn't, but I'm like the guy. I have stuff in my house which is like just stupid that I have it, but it's also
For me, I just get.
that's more my
try to get rid
my
of
tendency
everything.
to be that way, but and perhaps therefore why I don't tend to sell.
I still
any
have
of my watches. So
brochures of Generation 1 Transformers from 1985. I have a hard
But
time
that's
throwing
important.
them away.
That's
But
important.
important.
exactly.
Yeah, but I also kept a couple of military things like my uniform,
okay to have
like
some
some medals and
souvenirs.
stuff.
Yeah.
Man, I will never wear that again.
No.
But for now, maybe I'm not ready yet to get rid of
And
these.
that's fine. If
till
you
the
have space.
Halloween
Yeah,
party.
it's not a
comes
lot. I
around.
have like a small box with a bunch of things inside that will probably never open again. I don't know. But for now, I don't feel confident in throwing it away.
Yeah.
But it might
Yeah.
come at some point. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. So no, I don't have real regrets selling watches, but sometimes I do feel, the GMT Master 2 was nice, or the AP was nice, or some Omega was nice, but
then
It's
you also have
nothing
your current collection, and you're like, but that
now
is
I have
cool,
this,
and that
now
is
I have that.
nice.
But what would be
and,
your sort of like word of advice for people out there who are looking to avoid having regrets in their experience?
well, like I was with the Royal Oak Jumbo, that you need to be very conscious, because there was at the time already was a big purchase for me when it was 7.5K. Then I sold it for much more, and then I was very conscious about if I sell this now, I will not buy it back, because that's a lot of money for this watch or for any watch in general. And if you're then fine with it, then it's fine. But if you have doubts, then don't make a decision too quickly. But also, I think at the moment you're buying a watch, that's I think already the moment that you need to think, I like this watch now, but will I like it in 3 or 5 or 10 years from now? That was always a bit my mindset when I bought like bigger purchases, or more expensive watches. That this is the watch that I will like in 5 years from now or 10 years from now. And if it was a yes, then it's let's go ahead.
Have you ever regretted purchasing a watch?
Yeah, I think in the end.
Okay.
In the end, I did, because then I realized quickly already that watch was not for me, and I had doubts up front already.
Yeah, you made up excuses to buy it, and then it was
Not excuse, but it
confirmed
came on my path, and it was like an impulse purchase or trade sometimes, and I ended up with a Navi timer in '92.
Okay.
It was a Breitling Navi timer, and they were a little bit smaller than the regular ones.
Okay.
And there was a gold steel one, and at that time I was not ready yet for gold steel.
Right.
I can't imagine why, but and it was so busy and so cluttered, and then I got rid of it, and I traded a Sapphire Sandwich Speedmaster for that watch. So that was not the most clever trade in hindsight. And I had once I bought Dubois Eville. I think the brand was. They had these tonneau shaped watches.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but sometimes it's just satisfying curiosity.
Yeah, exactly. So no other really
And you
regrets.
you don't have any regrets, right?
I don't know yet.
Buying
if I buy it back and then I missed it, then I have regrets currently.
But
if
even
not-
there, so I bought the Yardmaster back for the second time, and then thought, I'm not wearing this watch, and I now remember why I sold it.
Yeah.
And then I sold it, I think, for the same or a little bit more than I paid for it, because the Rolex prices tend to increase a little bit every year. So in the end, there's no man overboard. So
no, that's like a safe bet. But and you didn't regret ever buying a specific watch?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. Well, because even if I sold the 16570, I have enjoyed my time with it, and I took pictures, and I was happy to wear it every day. It was my first Rolex, so no regret at all.
Okay.
It was just like evolving in a collection. Yeah. But now, if I would have bought, for example, instead of the FXD or the Seamaster, if I would have bought a dress watch, I don't know if I wouldn't have regrets, because I would be like, is this the watch that suits me? Now I'm not sure.
True. Yeah, with your move to the island, of course, to Reunion. Yeah.
Do you have regrets of not buying a watch? That came on your path and you decided not to, and in hindsight, I should have done it.
I could have bought a Rolex Oyster Perpetual 39 white dial instead of the Speedmaster. Because it was ready, I just went into the store. I put it on the
regret there.
No,
and I don't have regrets. No, that's what I was about to say. I don't have regrets because I'm so happy I chose the Speedmaster over it. Yeah. But regret in the sense that back then you could just walk in and get out with a sport Rolex, and maybe if I would have sold it now, I could have afforded the Speedmaster and get a little bit more cash. But
it's a bit of a financial regret. Not about the watch as such.
No regrets. No regret as such.
Yeah, for me, I think regret of not buying a watch, and again, it was mostly financially motivated. I could have possibly bought it, but it was a really nice. It was when I was first really getting into it, and I got my first. I was at my first job, I think, after university, and I went into a small jeweler in the city of Würzburg in Germany. And the guy there had I went in because I saw a nice Omega in the window, and then he said, but I have this Speedmaster that just came in. And it was a freshly serviced Speedmaster vintage one. I think it had even been recased. So the case was like completely fresh, but it was from the 70s. It had a flat link bracelet. So a really old one, freshly serviced by Omega. Yeah. And the guy asked for, I think, 1,800 or something like that. And I thought, wow, and it was box and papers basically. So I thought, if I had that money back then, then it would have saved me getting my Speedmaster, which I bought for just under 4,000 euros, also pre-owned. So in a way, I think back to that, and I always go, that would have been, if it had been the right moment, that would have been a hell of a deal. And but more so regret in the sense of not taking what was really quite a decent deal, but might have bothered me in the end because it being recased, it being serviced. I think it had a Luminova dial, so it's a 70s watch with a Luminova dial and Luminova hands. It's a bit of a Franken watch. But hey,
then it's also a matter of I mean, if you didn't have the money back then, it's just how it is. But if it's the same for you. If you sold it back then too, to afford something different or whatever. I
had a few nice offers. When I was a student, I was very active on like Time Zone and Watch You Seek, those kind of forums.
Right.
And there was 2 watches were offered to me that I kind of regret not taking a loan out.
Right. So
one was the gold Speedmaster from '69. So the ones that were like offered to the astronauts and the president, vice president, was offered to me for 5,000 euros in 2003.
My God,
insane.
Jeez.
And another one, I perhaps I could borrow the amount from my dad, but when I was a student, someone offered me a Ploprof box papers, first owner, and the Ploprof he got from his parents, I think, because he got his diver's certificate or license. Yeah. So he dove with it, and it was a full set. There was an extra strap, the shark bracelet, everything was there. Wow. I think I can't remember if it was Dutch guilders, that would make it even worse, or euros, but I think it was 750.
Oh my God.
And I said, I'm a student. I don't have that money right now.
But when you're a student,
sell it to Gerard, and Gerard bought it.
No way.
Yeah. And I think he sold it much later. And now I sometimes see that watch still floating around.
The same exact
same watch, but like I don't know,
like it's the 10th owner now,
8K or something.
It's the 12th owner now.
Yeah, so I think sometimes I see that watch for sale on some Dutch collecting watch group on Facebook or whatever.
Interesting, it's still in Holland.
That's the watch, and I think So I'm confronted with my mistake all the time.
But at this point, you probably see the price and you think, let's not get into that.
Yeah, and some watches are discontinued that I regret. Like Sin used to have the EZM1. Einsatzzeitmesser.
Yeah, very cool watch.
And a titanium watch with a Lemania 5100 movement with a crown on the left. Super cool watch. And And they're so expensive now, but at some point they got discontinued and they did remakes, I think with a modified Slitar ETA movement, which is not a real deal for me. I love that watch. I love how it looks, and it's a perfect watch. Perhaps it's better than the Lemania 5100 because although that's very loved by collectors, it's not fault-free.
But you're Speedmaster fans of Lemania.
So that's a bit of a pity, but it is what it is.
Exactly. But I think the bottom line could be that as soon as you spend enough time with watches as your hobby, your passion, your collecting habit, like you're gonna end up with some regrets, and it's kind of unavoidable unless you play it so safe that then you're gonna be maybe also a little bit bored.
Yeah, perhaps so. But, and then sometimes you also have a good story.
Exactly. That's it. Exactly. That you can tell on a podcast. And
just be very conscious about when you buy a watch and when you sell a watch. That what's the effect? What is the consequence of this?
Exactly. Give it all some thought. Sleep on it, and then try to live without regrets. We clearly haven't managed to do that, but hey, maybe this will be helpful to some other people who will be able to do so. We have a comment of the week. Yes. So it's from Hubertje.
Oh,
on the website, a commenter, not on the YouTube comments, but on the website comments, and it's about last week's podcast, or actually the previous week's podcast, on how to build a watch collection. And he says, "Folks, you don't need a collection to enjoy watches. The only good way to build one is your way." And I think
go your own way.
That's very true.
Words of wisdom.
Think of a of a slogan. But that's it. So thanks guys for the great discussion. And to the audience, of course, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, tune in next week for another episode of Fratello Talks. See you then.